He's going to talk you through that.
Okay. I love the colors.
That's just for you to like. Hey, did you find your script here?
No,
So
I
that's
didn't.
your
Yeah,
script.
yeah, no,
Okay,
I
thank you.
I said I love the colors. I can.
Let me turn that off.
I am listening to you.
On some things, huh? Thank you.
No, I'm listening. I only follow on some things.
Okay, you
Thanks for the
ready?
clarification.
Happy summer, everyone. It's 6:35, and I would like to call to order this meeting of the Princeton Independent School District Board of Trustees, excuse me, on June 16th, 2025. I just lost my place, sorry. And call to order this meeting of the Princeton Independent School District Board of Trustees. And announce that we have a quorum of the board. The meeting was duly called and has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. I am Cindy Darland, President of the Princeton ISD Board of Trustees, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees and our Superintendent, Donald McIntyre, we welcome our guests and our staff. Thank you for coming. Now, will you please rise as we honor our flags? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Will you please remain standing as we receive our invocation by Starla Sharp?
Well, good evening, everyone. If you will take a second and just bow with me, we will just go to the Lord in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing us to come together, Lord, to do what's pleasing in your sight for these kids at Princeton ISD. Please be with us as we go through tonight's agenda, that it is acceptable and pleasing in your sight. It's in your Son's name that we pray and ask these things. Amen.
Do we have any public comment? Okay. Now we're on for public comments, but there are none, so we're going to skip that one. The next is information items and reports, construction update.
away, Colton?
What's that?
How do I make this box go away? I don't trust you.
Try right-clicking in white space. I thought it was a right click.
All right, we're gonna have a little box here tonight. It's okay. There's nothing important behind it. Go ahead.
Okay. So starting at the middle school, for site work, there's track and field work that continues. The tennis court construction has begun, and the light pole bases are near completion. For the building's RT user set, structural steel is complete and all elevated slabs have been poured. Looking forward, exterior waterproofing and glazing install will continue, and then we start with exterior finishes, eaves, and masonry, and then the building being dried in shortly. Next, across the street here for the new admin and warehouse building, the interior finishes continue. Permanent power is on now at admin. The interior doors are installed at admin, and the masonry veneer at warehouse is complete. Looking forward, there will be a final paint at admin, and then a electrical and low voltage trim out work at the warehouse.
I saw the flooring, quite a bit of flooring is going in now. Do we know what the timeline for that to be complete?
So, most of the building for admin is done. The only thing that they're really waiting on there is the entry and boardroom because of other millwork stuff that needs to come in.
Okay.
I don't know exactly a final time on that. I think they were going to have to get the warehouse to a level that it's conditioned so that that's going to be done too, and they'll come back and do those spaces the same way that they're doing the warehouse.
Perfect. Thank you.
Next to the elementary school, the subgrade prep is complete for the bus drop-off lane. For the building, all slabs on the first floor are complete, and the structural steel install has begun. Looking forward, completion of foundation, I think that was the last time, that one should actually be off. Joist and deck install for the first floor roofs and second floor, and then pours for those elevated decks. And finally, for the stadium, it has been surprising to see how fast that has gone up. But the press box steel is complete, the concessions, restroom, plumbing and electrical rough-ins are complete. The grandstand and field house steel are both in progress. Looking forward, light gauge wall will start to be installed at the field house as well as exterior sheathing and waterproofing. And then the masonry veneer at concessions and restrooms will begin. As far as I'm aware, we are still on the extended schedule for construction to continue making up some of the time that was lost for the weather.
Question about the road outside that. I'm guessing it's not our responsibility, but it looks pretty damaged. Are we, got any plans to,
The Maple,
yeah, the one right out here?
yeah, so that is technically the city's property, that's past the school's property. I don't know if there's been any discussions with the city, but technically it would be something to have a discussion with them to determine whether they are going to fix it or if they want us to.
We've started having those conversations, and some repairs will happen there. We'll work that out with them.
Okay, great.
Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next is our curriculum update.
Y'all have all been very anxious to see the results of STAR testing, and so I've given you a handout. I apologize, I thought that I had included that in your packet, so that was but keep in mind, these are not official numbers yet. These still have to be certified. They have to go through the accountability process, and so once those are finalized, I will give you the full presentation, but this is an overview of where we stand today, the knowledge that we have. So that left column is going to be what our scores were last year. The right column is where we scored this year, and then I've color-coded there on gains and declines, and then that far right column is just a summary overall of the areas where we increased or held, the areas where we declined, and then what our net gain or decline was. But as you can see summed up there at the bottom,
Mr. Gunnels, could you just maybe do the fifth grade and maybe pick another one, eighth grade or something like that? Just kind of walk us through that, the color coding. I understand the colors, but I want to, just how I compare this against prior.
Right, so that gain and decline column there is gonna be, so if you were to take the very top one, third grade reading, that would be in the approaches, a gain of 2 points, in meets, a gain of 2 points, and then in masters, a hold. So we didn't gain or decline in that.
Okay, the next column over where it says increase hold, that's
So increase there, yeah, so there are 24 tested areas there. If you look at approaches, meets, and masters, across those 8 tests, there would be 24 opportunities to go up or down. And we went up in 15 of them and down in 9 for a net increase of 23 points. And it's done that way because that's how, when we get into the accountability system, that's how they calculate it, is that the cumulative number of points there.
So looking at fifth grade math, those numbers there,
Yeah,
any,
fifth grade math is an area of concern. There was some decline there, and that's something that we're already working with curriculum committees and the new elementary coordinator to address that. That would be our largest area of decline.
and so year before, is that a carryover from the year before possibly? Did they do poorly in that year
That
also?
cohort, fourth grade last year, if you look up, you can see where they were. So if you look at the 23-24 column and look at fourth grade, you'll see that they performed somewhat lower there in fourth grade as well. And so, and where they were, but in net decline as compared to that fifth grade group last year.
And, sorry to monopolize, you guys jump in if you need to here, but we have a plan that was presented to us, and how is that coming together for this coming year? What's that looking like? What do you need from us?
I think it's coming together very nicely. I know that Rachel has been working very closely with the 2 coordinators at the elementary level, to work on that curriculum going into next year. We've started the process, we discussed the PLC process. We've started the process of training all of our principals on that. That's going to be a very extensive, very in-depth thing that's going to help teachers walk through internalizing lesson materials and really getting to know them better, getting better acquainted with them before they teach. And so I think there's been a lot of effort already at this point in the summer that's been put into that, and I think it's going to yield positive results. And I think the efforts that we took this year, when you look at the net, obviously I would love to present something to you that has nothing but green on it, but when we can present something that's got more green and yellow than it does red, given the trend that we've been on the last 2 years, I'm very encouraged to see that we are climbing.
Great. Do you think the map is helping you with this?
I think it is. I think definitely having a better picture of kids as they move in, that's been one of the things that we've struggled with, is just the number of kids moving in and the amount of turnover in the student body that we're dealing with. Having an assessment that gives us a better picture, not just, what we get at the first 9 weeks or how they did on STAR last year, but something that gives us that picture of fundamental gaps going years back, helps us to have a better roadmap for helping kids.
Thanks. And I'm guessing you have a plan to catch these guys that are in red here up. You're working on that, I hope so.
That's what we're working on.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Ganos, based off of what you shared and what we've already kind of established that you guys were going to put into place, that we can reevaluate at some point in the next school year to see how that's working. I mean, I understand these numbers that we have right now is based off of what we had prior to us putting this into place. So is that correct in my understanding of that?
Yes,
The thing that's confusing to me is the trend. In fourth grade math, it's all green. In fifth grade math, it's all red. In sixth grade math, it's all green. And in seventh grade math, it's all red. Is there an explanation for that?
well, in 7th grade math, I think a lot of the struggle that we faced there was due to some resignations and staffing issues that we had with that cohort. 5th grade math, that was a tough group. Ms. Nix, I know, has worked extensively with principals on that. because you're right, that is an anomaly from the rest of the pattern that we're seeing. And so, like I say, that's something that we go back and we look specifically at that group of kids, because you know, you've got to remember that that's being compared, this group this year, to how the fifth grade group performed last year, as opposed to how that group increased or decreased. That's the number that you're looking at.
And for eighth grade history, is there a reason for all of them being red?
Eighth grade history, in what I've told, or what I've spoken to my colleagues across the state, we've seen pretty much everyone statewide decline there. That's just a fluctuation when we see one test from one year to the next. The level of difficulty in that test, you know, we did have some staffing changes there, but I think that the majority of what they're seeing, or what we're seeing there, is due to the design of the test that they saw this year.
So how are we going to better prepare them?
Well, we're going to continue to refine that curriculum. We're going to continue to focus on, that's something that writing is a component of that test, and so continuing to focus on writing across the curriculum, writing in every subject area to help kids increase and get the maximum number of points possible.
Are the TEKs not sufficiently addressing what we need there?
The TEKs are very, that's a, in eighth grade U.S. history, your TEKs are so broad and so all-encompassing. When you deal with a subject like fourth grade math, fifth grade math, your TEKs are relatively few in number and greater in depth. When you start taking an assessment like eighth grade history, the TEKs are so broad because that test deals with prior to the founding all the way up until the Civil War. And so there are so many different eras and so many different concepts. That's one of the more difficult tests to prepare students for, just because you don't know whether you're going to get an essay on Manifest Destiny or on the Magna Carta. And it's just such a broad amount of material that we're covering there that sometimes it's just difficult.
Are we actually covering all that material that in the year? I know that being a teacher, sometimes there were some areas that we didn't get to touch.
I think we do a very good job covering the material there. I would be happy to sit down with you and walk through what that material looks like. I think we do a very good job of walking through students through, especially the founding documents, the reasoning behind the system of government that we have. That is an area, just as being a former middle school principal, I spent a lot of time in that eighth grade history classroom, just because that's a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and I think that kids do get a very good exposure to the founding documents and the founding precepts of our nation.
I just want to make sure that all of our material that we have pointing to what we need to get done is sufficient and is actually pointing us in the right direction.
Reading, writing, that seems sometimes you can read well, but you're not comprehending what
Do what? The mic?
Correct, and that is something that,
history just as well.
yeah, and that is something that is a struggle, because you're looking at the mechanical aspect of reading and being able to sound out words versus comprehending
It's not-
what you're actually, you have to hold it.
Oh, you have to hold it.
So just for the audience, Mr. Campbell's question is about the difference between just rote reading and comprehension of reading, and that's something that we work on, especially inferencing is one of the big skills that the test is constantly going over, and that's something that we spiral in all of our reading classrooms, but not just reading classrooms. We also try to work that in history. One of the big areas with history where they work on that is with political cartoons. So we spend a lot of time putting those cartoons up, or putting paintings, primary source documents like that up for students to see and work through inferencing. What does this mean? What was the artist trying to get at here? We also spend a lot of time in history writing things from that person's point of view. So not just being able to read and understand it, but also then being able to assume the point of view of someone who lived during that time period and have them engage in a dialogue so that they really do internalize those concepts. My mic's not on. You let me down, Colton.
So So can you just go back and say all that again? No, I'm just kidding.
So in summary, we're awesome.
I'll start over to give you the questions again.
And like I said, once we get final scores in, I'll give the full public presentation, but I wanted y'all to have this just so that you could see.
Thank you for
where
this.
we
I
are.
appreciate it.
Okay?
Colors are nice.
I'm trying.
And the security update.
So you have that in your. You have that in your packet to look at. Remember, we're running a month behind on those, so that's why you're still getting one. That's for the month of May, so.
And let's talk about board training.
So I sent to you, Region 10 is offering the one-day board training that, like what we did in the past on July 21st. It's an all-day training, just like we did in the past. We'd go down and you would get your full 10 hours of training in on that one day. TEE is also offered to offer a similar training, but they would do it where they would come out here to our campus and have it out here with us, but it would just be our board. It wouldn't be any other boards. So whether that's an advantage or disadvantage, that's up to you. Region 10 would be similar to what we did in the past where we had the other school districts there with us. And so I'd asked everybody to bring your availability so we could look at that, but we're missing 3 board members that I don't have that from. So I don't think we're going to be able to plan that tonight. So if you want to just, if anybody has any thoughts, and then if you just want to email me and Amy your availability for the week of July 21st to the 25th so that we can try to find options to move forward.
I just need this settled as soon as possible, please. And all board members need to be present for our team of 8, so we have to make sure it's something that all of us can attend. I do like the idea of them coming to us because it can be designed for our needs, and it's also here. I wondered, I've asked Mari to get a legislative update ready for us. I wondered if she could come that day and actually incorporate that.
And both of these groups do have legislative updates to give us as well, so we would have them, but I'm sure we could reach out to her and ask if someone from her office or her could come out and do that as well.
I just thought if we could combine it and have the biggest picture we could get.
Yep.
And maybe even ask Candy to come, Candy Noble, and see if she could talk to us about that. I don't know. I like the idea of being able to tailor-make it to our needs and what we want to know.
So I also like the idea of us being able to be with other boards too and learn from them as well.
I understand.
So that would be my vote, is to see if we could do it for the Region 10 one that they're looking to have.
My preference would be to do the one here and do it with T here with our board and have it tailored to our board.
Well, since
we'll
everyone
have
is
to
not
vote
here
when
today.
everybody's here, yeah.
Yeah, so if you'll just, y'all will email me, and then me and Amy will email the other board members and get their dates, and then I will see what we can get set up and send that back out to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next is the Shack report.
So you have that in your packet. Each year, the SHAC meets and goes over and looks at different things, and then you have that recommendation that was in your packet for your review. Wendy Kane, that runs the SHAC meeting for us. Hi, Wendy, how are you today? Is here with us if you do have any questions. And if there's no questions, we just need to approve that.
I have a question or a comment and would
Okay.
like you to speak to it. Where's Wendy at?
Right over here.
Oh, there you are. Come on up.
Can you guys press the button as you're speaking, because we can't hear you down this way?
Okay, I am pressing the button, but maybe I need to lean in more. How's that?
Yeah, pull
Can
it
you hear me?
closer to you.
Try that. Better?
That's much better.
Okay. I thought I was quiet, but then Casey was quiet too, so.
Casey didn't have his mic on.
Oh, is it on? Yeah, it's on. Okay.
So I've got a couple questions, and you mentioned on your, I guess it'd be your first page after your cover page, to see, go down to 24, 25, SAC's goals were, and down there, it says to make recommendations to board on possible best practices for screen time usage among students. This one ties into my second, on the second page, where we're asking about PISD should continue to research, update appropriate safeguards against potentially harmful websites and content. I have a real concern against, or with social media and how that's affecting our kids and the things that are happening that we have no control over, but
Maybe we should have
certainly.
put the next item first.
The
Yeah.
next item, he's going
Yeah.
to address that.
Okay, we could, but that wasn't in your recommendation, so I wanted you to speak to that. Is that something that you would recommend, something that you've looked at?
I mean, definitely the shack, and it's a wide-ranging group, right? But I have counselors, nurses, parents, teachers, just the gamut. And so they each were looking at it from, a particular viewpoint. And so when we came up with the recommendations, that's definitely, something that was mentioned. But we didn't have, as a group, enough time to thoroughly research and make like specific recommendations. Does that answer? I mean, we definitely, there is a concern there that we should continue to investigate. If that's what the shack decides to do, or if we're tasked with that, we meet 4 times a year, and so some of these questions are ongoing or long-term questions that weren't able to be fully addressed.
So, do you need more time to investigate that, or do you need direction to do that? I don't want to just ignore this, and I'm not saying you're doing that.
Right.
As a school district, I think it's a problem, and I think we can take a position on it that would help the students while they're here and possibly even outside of campuses.
Right. I definitely, sorry.
Ask
No.
a quick question. I did not mean to cut you off.
you're
I was just looking at where you have on here in your recommendation that PISD campuses should continue to investigate ways to provide each student with multi-sensory experiences. But before that, it said we should continue to research and update appropriate safeguards against potentially harmful websites and content, correct? So this is your recommendation for us as we move forward, is to continue to investigate to see what options there are.
Right. And definitely, having someone from the department, technology department, that's a little more well-versed than we are on the shack, definitely to maybe work with us. We're happy to take whatever direction the board wants us to take if they want us to investigate this more next year. We definitely can. But we know that there's a need, right? We just aren't to that level where we can say, sorry, I've got an alarm going off. Where we can say, we want this program, this program, this program.
And what was the acronym for?
It's the
again?
School Health Advisory Council.
Health Advisory Council. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
So
wanted to make
really,
sure.
we're in an advisory capacity and just looking at things and making recommendations, that kind of thing. So we just did not have specific software or, ways to address that question, just given our level of knowledge within the shack,
But the thought is that we're going to investigate and follow up with more future state.
if that's what the board directs the shack to do, yes.
Awesome.
How do we go about directing the shack?
You just someone would make a consensus up here and get a consensus of the board of what you want us to look at and what direction you want us to go. But if it's the social media that you're talking about, if you've read your next item on your
Isn't
agenda,
that the
we're
next?
addressing that, and we've heard the concerns, and we are already taking that into consideration.
It was more because of their advisory stance. I thought maybe that they would have, you would have more to say about that in supporting my hypothesis of trying to
And
reduce that.
I have a wide range of viewpoints on the shack. And, so not everybody has the same kind of level of concern. So, we're trying to meet in the middle and form some consensus.
But I think you've said in the recommendations here, look for ways for screen time breaks. So, I mean, there is an overall concern that we need to look for ways to limit the amount of time the kids are on devices and not just sitting on a device all day, every day at school.
Right,
Or all
definitely.
day, every day at home.
And
so
that's the
education
nurses.
programs
That
is
was
some
the
of the things
nurses.
we've talked about, correct, for
Yes,
parents as well.
yes. Yeah.
You know, that we as a staff need to make sure we're not using them as babysitters in the classroom, and parents at home need to make sure they're not using them as babysitters at the house.
Right.
That we all understand the dangers of kids on social media, and we've got to find ways to use technology appropriately and effectively with students, whether that's here at school or at our homes.
Right. And I do know, Sancy brought in a speaker on, the best research on brain and brain's research and how it's impacted by screen time usage, that kind of thing. That was pretty well attended by parents. I also came. So, we're putting information, we're putting information out there, but just trying to form some consensus and what is needed as far as district involvement. Is it a combination of technology and curriculum, and who is involved, needs to be involved in these conversations? I think this is where the SHAC was trying to go. We know that we're just, we're limited, but definitely are inviting others to the table to have that further conversation.
Excuse me, ma'am, what are some of the challenges that you're having?
Ouch.
Some of the challenges as far as the SHAC goes, I think just, there's a core group that has been on the SHAC ever since I have overseen that program, and just trying to get, consensus and participation among parents. We run this in hybrid mode so that everyone who is able to participate can. I have an in-person meeting at the same time that we're running it in hybrid, and, we record it and post it, that kind of thing. So I think just, wanting to make sure that all voices are heard.
I'm very concerned about too much screen time and not enough in-person teaching. And so I was looking for a little bit more input on that. Did y'all discuss that in SHAC?
We definitely, did. But as far as none of us on the SHAC are curriculum experts, so as far as, what they see as a need, as far as the levels of, or the time spent, the time allotted to, that kind of thing versus in-person, real hands-on, experiential teaching. I definitely think there's a place in that where it does say, we need to focus that in that direction. But as far as we weren't geared towards, giving specific, like, this amount of time per day needs to be spent here or there. The group that participates in the SHAC didn't feel confident enough in making those very specific guidelines.
Thank you for your work that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else?
I think
Thank
you're
you,
good.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And next, the school-issued technology.
So a couple of months ago, I believe it was 2 months ago, we had a public comment in reference to school use technology and some concerns that came up about what students were able to access on those sites. And primarily, the biggest discussion was around social media sites that we currently had not blocked on school-issue devices. And so just kind of bringing some update after some conversations with staff. We will be updating the filters for those for next year so that school-issue devices will have all of those sites blocked, both while they're here at school. Now, again, when the student takes that to the house, it's not on our network. We have no control over that. But we have purchased a license for every parent that they can access, and we've sent that out multiple times, so that when the parents are at home, you can log in and you can control what they do, and you can get a report that comes to you. I get one every week for my daughter that tells me exactly what time, how much time she spent on every different thing on her school-issued Chromebook while she's at the house.
Do we know what social media sites they were having access to? I'm just curious.
Primarily Facebook, Instagram, I think were the only two that was left. Everything else had been blocked prior. We had left those two open because we do have school Facebook and Instagram that we communicate
Right.
information out to the kids. But we did believe that The students that need the information immediately will get them through our Sports U apps and the other things that we're using to communicate with kids. And then if there is stuff that they need to see on our social medias, they can do that on their own devices outside of school.
So currently, do we know if any of our staff uses social media as part of their teaching to connect with students?
I think it's a pretty small number that uses those two, and I think there's plenty of other options out there that we can use that are a little bit easier for us to monitor.
Actually, when I was teaching in Allen, they forbid us to connect with our students on social media.
Oh, yeah, we have a policy that doesn't allow teachers and students to do those things to
I thought that's
communicate.
what she
No,
was
no.
asking.
No, she's saying that maybe is posting assignment or telling them to go look for information on those sites or those kind of things for educational.
We have other ways to do that, though. So,
That's what he just said.
Is this, so this locking down is only going to work for the school when they're here on campus using our network? Is there, and we purchased a license to lock it down that the parents can use, right?
Correct.
And they're not, they may or may not be doing it.
Correct. We've given them all the tools that we can provide for them to use, but there is going to be a point in time when the parents have to take responsibility for what the kids are doing outside of our building, even if it's on our device.
So when a child is accessing that information at home, we've got to ask the parent to take their lead and install that software, or is it already on all the devices?
It's an easy link that they have to just go to, and it comes to them in your email with a link that you click on, and it takes you right to connect to your child and their device. You get the email, I mean, took me
I
very
get it
quick.
every week. For all of, well, now only 2 of mine, but for all 3 of them, for a while, I was getting it every week.
maybe at the beginning of the year, one of our meetings that we have with parents, we could offer to help parents access that site and get it up and running. It's an idea.
We did this year. I had Mr. Vincent come and present on that. He did a great job. We had several parents in attendance. And you can also use that technology on your student's cell phone as well, not just on the device we own.
Oh, that's really helpful.
Filtering and cell phones as well.
Parents, did you hear all that? I think that's something that everybody needs to know about. Thank you so much. Any more questions? Number 6 on our agenda is the consent agenda.
I would just like to point out, for POs over 50,000, in front of you, you have a new updated quote from Really Great Reading. So please see that. The main difference is shipping and handling and the way that's being handled.
I'd like to say thank you to those that handled that and got that adjusted. Appreciate that.
Good job, Rachel.
Yay, Rachel. Very good. So, does any trustee have an item that they want pulled for separate consideration?
Hold it. There was one person that introduced themselves that may get hired tonight, and so I was wondering if we should pull that one and talk to that person. No, I'm teasing, really. She was really nice.
If there's not an item anyone wants to pull, may I have a motion to accept the consent agenda or deny it?
Give a motion to accept, okay, I'll second that motion.
John made the motion, and Dwayne seconded it. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. We'd like to introduce somebody before we move on. Sorry, I was so worried that I had to turn this on before the next part, Casey. Good job.
You're
Can you
good.
turn on your mic?
Is it Colton?
It's
We're good.
working, yeah.
So, speaking of that somebody, you may have all already met her, but I would like to introduce Dr. Holly Grubbs. She will be coming on board as our new Executive Director of Secondary Education. She comes to us from Mesquite ISD. She's got 24 years of experience. She got her doctorate in education from Southern Methodist University, and she's here with her husband, Chris, and son, Eli, and then she's got another son, Wyatt, who is studying to be a pilot, correct? And Eli's a baseball player. So, right in the thick of things. So we're proud to have Holly here with us.
Happy to have you here.
Did you want to say something?
Well, I just want to thank you for this opportunity and for the trust that you've placed in me. I'm honored to accept the position. I come to this role with a deep respect for the work that's already being done and a strong commitment to building on the district's success. Together with our principals, some are here this evening, teachers, and community partners, I'm committed to fostering a culture of high expectations, shared ownership, and continuous growth. I look forward to listening, learning, and leading in ways that empower every campus to thrive. Thank you for the warm welcome, and I'm excited and ready to get to work.
Yay. We're excited for you to get to work, Holly. At this time, members of the board, we will move to Agenda Item 7, which is to hear and consider the Level 3 appeal filed by Mrs. Nicole Morris pursuant to Sections 551.071, 551.082, and 551.0821 of the Texas Government Code. The board will consult with its legal counsel and hear and consider the Level 3 appeal hearing in closed session. I now need a vote to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion to move into executive session.
Starla made the motion. Do I hear a second? John seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. We are now going into executive session at 7:14. 13 or 14? 14. 7:14.
I gotta take mine, kind of, crazy questions you're gonna ask me.
The time is 8:04. The board conducted the Level 3 appeal hearing in closed session pursuant to Sections 551.071, 551.082, and 551.0821 of the Texas Government Code. The board then met in executive session pursuant to Sections 551.071, 551.082, and 551.0821 of the Texas Government Code. Following executive session, the board has now reconvened in open session. In accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, any action taken regarding this matter must be taken in open session. Do I have a motion on the Level 3 appeal?
I'd like to make a motion. I move that the board deny the complainant's Level 3 appeal in its entirety and uphold the administration's decision at Level 2.
Starla made the motion to deny the appeal in total. Is there a second? John seconded. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on number 8. Okay, number. 8:04. Pardon? Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Number 9, addition and deletion of authorized representatives for investment and banking accounts.
So with our changes that are upcoming at the end of this month, we just need to make some changes to the account. So we need you to approve to remove Jonna Boitman as an authorized user and add Nicole Powell.
I'll make that motion to remove Jonna Boitman and add Nicole Powell as an authorized representative on all investment and banking accounts.
Starla made the motion. Is there a second? John seconded. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes. Number 10 is consider an act on an RFP number 25005, bank depositing contracts.
So every 4 years, we're required by law to go out and put out an RFP for depository contracts for the district. We did that again this year. We sent those to you. We sent out the proposals, and we give you a copy of the proposals that came in. We received 2 bids this year, one from South State, which was formerly Independent Bank, which is our current depository, and one from People's Bank, that is the new bank in town that used to be Citizens Bank. Our recommendation, after reviewing the proposals, is to award the 2-year depository contract to People's Bank, beginning on September 1 of 2025.
I'd like to make a motion to award the 2-year depository RFP to People's Bank beginning September 1, 2025. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Starla seconded. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Number 11 is preliminary 2025-2026 budget.
Nicole, I'm going to give you a clicker in just a second, but I've got to get it open first. Okay, I was thinking about making some comments. Now I'm definitely going to. I have a feeling this is going to be the best presentation we've ever had. Watch it not work.
Good evening. I want to start off by make sure everyone understands that tonight's preliminary budget presentation will be based on old law. New law guidance is still forthcoming. I do have a slide to kind of summarize a few things, specifically from House Bill 2, but make sure that everybody understands our revenue and expenditure projections are going to be based on old law, as that is our best understanding and that is our guidance so far. I want to start by making sure we're all on the same page with our coding. Specifically, if you start looking through the presentation and you start seeing revenue codes, object codes, you start seeing expenditure object codes, fund and function codes, and make sure we're kind of all on the same page there. So when we're talking about revenue, we're in our 5,000s most of the time. That's where we live when it comes to object codes for revenue. Your local tax base, your 5710 to your 5719. And then you're looking at other revenue, 5720 to 5769. Other revenue can be things like our athletic revenue that we make. We have some seats at Kate that other districts purchase to send kids here to be educated. We make revenue off of that. You can see facility rentals revenue, anything that we take in as another local source will be coded there. 5810 to 5849 is your state revenue, your state programs. We get some special education funding from the state, bilingual ed funding from the state. Whenever you see those revenues come in, they'll go there in those codes. And then 5910 through 5959 are your federal revenues, Title I, Title II. Food service is a big one that we're actually going to talk about this evening, that you'll see in that when that revenue comes in. And then we have other revenues where we transfer fund to fund if need be. Then the other part that we want to talk about, we want to focus on funds, the fund code. That's very important for us. We need to know what fund we're putting money in. So our auditor comes in and looks. And by law, we do have to discuss General Fund 199 tonight, Fund 240, which is our food service, our Fund 599, which is debt service, and then our local capital projects, which is 688. Those are the funds that we're really going to discuss this evening, and we'll then again in July and August. You can also see there are some other funds, your 200s or your federals. Those are big things. ESSERs will roll out. We should stop seeing those quickly. And then we have some other special revenue funds like our state textbooks, our security grants. We even have daycare in there, and then there's our bonds, and then our workers' comp. Okay. Functions, this is where a lot of our principals and directors mainly live. They'll call and I'll say, what's in your 11? And they know what I'm talking about, or what's in your 23? Usually if I say leadership 23, instruction 11, that helps our principals and our directors. But we go fund and then function. So our function is our purpose. What are we using the money for? And you'll notice 11 is highlighted in maroon. 11 is our major purpose as a school district. So when we get a few slides later, you will see that the majority of our funds are spent in function 11 because that is our main purpose. But then you will see library, counseling, school nurse, which is your health services in 33. You'll see security monitors. We have different functions that we have to understand what our purpose of our funds are. And then object code, these are expenditure object codes. So revenues were 5,000s, expenditures are 6,000s. So for us, payroll, which is highlighted in maroon, that's going to be the bulk of our expenditures. Our purpose is to educate, and we do that how? By hiring and keeping great teachers, so our payroll is going to take up the bulk of our money. And then you'll see 6,200s, which are professional and contracted services. That's really our utilities are going to lie there. Some of our plant maintenance and operation is going to be big there in the 6,200s. Supplies and materials in your 6,300s. You have other operating costs in your 6,400s. We have debt service, and then capital outlay, 6,600s. Anything that's over a $5,000 unit value will land in your 6,600s. Okay, so that's kind of the real fast overview of the codes that we're talking about. Let's talk about our revenue assumption under the old law. We're using an average daily attendance of 10,540 for the budget, which is an increase from 1,161 students from this current year. Current enrollment is 10,314 to a projected enrollment of 11,281 students. So that's what we're looking at in enrollment for next year. That's an estimated 848 students in kindergarten, and we just graduated 619. So that right there is already growth, those coming out, those going out and those coming in. You can also see a three-year projection is not the right word, I apologize, but a three-year trend of our enrollment right there at the bottom. Property values, we are increasing in our property values. Just know those are adjusting. We do not have certified values. These are our preliminary values right now. We also have a tax rate that is slightly lower this year that we're using as compared to last year, just about a nickel. is what we were looking at, with $1.20 being our overall tax rate, M&O at around 70 cents, and INS at 50 cents. And our INS is the same this year. So it's the M&O that's slightly lower. And then we do have new instructional facilities allotment, about $361,000 there. We get that from all new enrollments at Perkins, because that'll be our new campus, and then any growth enrollment in James and Green will contribute to our new facilities, our new instructional facilities allotment. Sorry, I'm used to saying NEFA. I try not to use acronyms. Okay. I thought this was a great slide. I'll be honest with you, I pay attention every year at the budget time. I'm just that kind of nerd. This numbers interest me. And so every year I really like to see these graphs because they just keep shooting up as we keep going. You can see our enrollment growth, you can see our taxable value growth, and then you can see our starting teacher salary growth. There is a constant there just because we have not had that discussion with the new the legislature that just ended and the new funding, and I know that that is coming. So I just left that there. This is our administrative priority list from April. I know some points of the year that we already have some items funded. Currently, there aren't any items funded yet on this list, but I wanted everyone to be aware that these are the priority items that our administrators back in April presented and voted on. And so the goal would be to get some or as many of these funded as possible. Bond projects, we're all building. Everyone knows that. You can see it as you drive in. And so right now, our current finished projects, we have Perkins Early Childhood, which will open with the start of the school year. Currently under construction, we've got Bunchbach Middle School. I just say Mr. B Middle School because that's all I've ever known him as, and that's what I called him. We have Carroll Elementary. Then we have our stadium reno and our admin and annex, or our warehouse annex building, which should move to the finished project column, definitely by August, crossing our fingers. So hopefully those move to that column. But then we will continue in our planning process for middle school land purchases and elementary land purchases. We do have a bond sale pending, and I will have more details and more data and parameters for that come next month. So let's start getting into the meat of what we've got going based on our assumptions. So let's start with 199. That's our general fund. That's the bulk of our money. We'll have property taxes come in. And what you're going to notice is we've got an increase in just about everything. More kids, more growth requires more money, but brings in more money. So you're going to notice a consistent theme of growth in everything. So you can see here we're growing to about 39 million. A little closer to 40 million when it comes to our local revenue that we're bringing in. And then we've got our state revenue of right there around 82 million. And then we're looking at some extra federal. That's kind of our impact aid, some of our smaller federals, not our grants, because this is 199. So looking at just over 600,000 there. Looking at 122 million in revenues is what we're projecting for next year based off the assumptions that we used. So then when you take that revenue and you look at, okay, how are we going to expend our funds? Let's talk about still in Fund 199, but let's split it out by our functions. And you'll notice 64% of this money is going to be spent in Function 11. Okay, that's our purpose. So that's where the bulk of our funds are going to be spent. Just shy of about $78 million there in Function 11. And so right now in 199, as you look function by function, we are projecting $121 million in expenditures in 199. And then we go into, sorry, I'm not going, there we go. Then we look at by object code. Because the other big factor for us is ensuring that payroll is 80 to 85% of our budget. That's what sets a good standard, making sure that we have the right people, qualified people, and we pay them well so that they can contribute to our function and our purpose. So we're looking at right around 84%. I think it's 83.5% if you undo the rounding that is on the, that we're looking at in our payroll costs. So just over $101 million. In payroll is what we're talking about for next year. Okay, and so when you look at that, we're looking at the 121 million total expenditure, which is showing a positive budget or an increase to our fund balance of $1.2 million right now as it stands. Okay. based on old law, based on knowing that there's still some actions the board's going to take with a few things like salary scales. But that's where we're sitting right now. We will talk more next month about daycare transfer, because that's still pending. So we will talk more about our 489 daycare. I went ahead and left on what we had just kind of projected, but we need to do a little more firming up of those numbers before I bring that with you, or to you with 100%, knowing where we're headed there. So we're looking at about $8.38 per student per hour, as far as education per student per hour goes. Okay. Before I jump off to 599, are y'all good? Do we have questions? You prefer the whole thing and then we? Okay. So the next fund, let's talk about 599, which is our debt service, our bonds. Okay. These should run, 599 runs a balance, should run a balanced budget. Revenues and expenditures should equal, especially since we have a bond sale pending. I'm just kind of estimating what revenue we collect will then offset that new bond that we're going to have to pay for. So we're looking at just over 31.5 million in revenues and expenditures for our 599 for our bonds. 688, our local capital projects. Right now, I have 2 projects kind of slated that would come out of 688. AC units. I know Mr. Lovelady set forth kind of a grading scale for our AC units, but making sure there's funds there to continue that work that he wants to do, looking at about $600,000 there, and then looking at a playground refresh at Harper Elementary and getting that done for them. And right now, the revenue that's in 688 is based off the interest. And so that does fluctuate, and that may not cover all of that, but then we can come back and we'll have more firm if we need to transfer and use a little bit more there. Okay. 240 in food service. The goal there too is, or also there in 240 and 242, 242 is your summer feeding, is to run a balanced budget there. We do have a small, I say small, we have somewhat of a fund balance there too. If we do go a few over on expenditures, I know our child nutrition department has done some large equipment replacement this year to use some of that fund balance to make sure that we've got the equipment we need to feed kids and run her services. So we're looking at just shy of $6 million in both revenue and expenditures. Some notable factors that I want to make sure we all understand. First of all, of course, this is old law, using those assumptions, the old template, and understanding where we're currently at before we jump off into something that doesn't quite have the guidance we need to be confident. We're looking at preliminary values that are adjusting daily. Hopefully those get more shored up by the end of July, definitely before the August meeting. We have a slight decrease in our M&O rate. We do have a bond sale that is coming. We will continue construction forever, it feels like. And I've been here a long time, y'all. I was here when we were tiny 3A, so we're growing, definitely. Our startup costs for Bunchbach and for Carroll are also in this budget. You know, we're going to put 2 campuses on the ground next year. And so we got to make sure we have the startup that we need to do that, especially get those up and running come next July. We are opening 1 campus this year with Perkins Early Childhood Center. We're looking at, or we have added 80-plus teaching units. We've got an additional support staff that we're added. We're anticipating and waiting on contracted salary increase. That is still pending here. Non-contracted salary increase is still pending. And then, of course, we have HB2 funding changes. And so as promised, a little bit about HB2 based on our understanding and some guidance that kind of received between Region 10 and some others. But right now, we're looking at a basic allotment increase at $55 by reallocating current Tier 2 funds. So for us, we're not going to feel that as much as, because it's going to take what is currently sitting in Tier 2 and reallocate it. So it's already, for us, that's not going to be as big of a feel as far as some of these other funds will, some of the other increases in fundings will. Classroom teacher retention allotment. I know that's the one that everybody's kind of been waiting on, the TRA. So for us as Princeton ISD, any teacher going into year 3 and 4, so, and that's on our scale. That means they have completed year 3, because we do 0, 1, 2. So then step 3, they will get a $2,500 increase from 24-25 pay scale. Okay, and this is funded. So we are to act as a pass-through agent for these funds, for the TRA. And then 5+ years are to be at 5,000. And that is from the 24-25. So when you look at step 4, 24-25, that's where the increase should come into year 5. And then our support staff retention allotment, that's the SSRA. That is a focus on $45 per ADA for non-teacher, non-admin, part-time positions. Basically, anybody that's not in the classroom teacher allotment, that's where you can fund those from. Then we have the starting teacher compensation that states a 0-year certified teacher must make more than a non-certified teacher, a non-0-year certified teacher. We also have teacher incentive allotment increases are coming. Those will start in 26-27, so that'll be fiscal year 27. That doesn't affect this upcoming budget, but it is coming. We also have special education funding changes and an increase that should be coming in 26-27. Early literacy and numeracy funding for our intervention supports in K-3. You're looking at $250 a student, but we're capped at 10% of our K-3 enrollment. But it's to help us do interventions on students who qualify. So that is part of this funding change in HB2. We also have an early education allotment. What they're gonna, well, we already have that, but what they're gonna do is they're gonna reallocate some of those funds to benefit districts that offer full day pre-K. I don't want to say free day, full day pre-K. So for us, we offer full day pre-K. They're just going to reallocate some of our early ed and move that over to offset some of the pre-K funding. So that will make an adjustment there. Something else that come in HB2, children of classroom teachers are now eligible for state-funded half-day pre-K. And then we are seeing an increase in the school safety allotment. So those are the big kind of highlights from HB2 that I wanted everyone to know, that moving into July, our revenue assumptions are going to be based on HB2, and we'll move into that. But those are our highlights right now for what HB2 is calling for. So that's our preliminary budget at a glance.
We got some of our asks,
We did. We did.
not as much as we wanted, but we got some of it.
We did. And the legislature was much more, this is how it's going to be spent, I feel like, than it has been in the past, especially specifically with how they're looking at money for raises.
We'll keep working on them.
Nicole, the M&O rate is a little bit different than what was on our what do we call this here, our schedule here, that I received, the red line from MAC. Now, I'm not talking about that 5-cent thing. I'm talking about you add the math using the 5-cent number to it. I'm getting a different number than what I showed up there, what you showed. You showed $1.20, and I know it's preliminary and we're still working through it.
The $1.20 is the total tax rate. The M&O should be right around 71 cents.
Yes, 70.73,
Yes.
and that's what's in your notes.
Yeah, the $1.20 is the total tax rate. So the M&O at 70 cents, and then your INS at 50 cents. I can go, I can go back to the slide. I'm okay if.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I'll redo the math here, and part of it was because of that nickel.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
And we did update the notes in the board packets too, so the new notes do reflect the error that we found earlier.
I saw that. I like the other number better, though.
That was Jonna's fault.
And she said, "This will really make Dwayne happy."
Yes, but I had to reel her back in. Anything else?
Any questions?
I think this is good, and thank you for adding the information on House Bill 2, because that's been kind of a point that I've been researching myself, so seeing this was very helpful.
Thank you.
Before you leave, what is the security additional allotment? Do you know what that's looking like?
No, I do not have official numbers on that piece yet, no, sir. And so we're still waiting on some guidance there as how they're going to increase that. But I will make note of that, and I will get you an actual answer.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
And special thank you. I know Nicole and Jonna have been working extra time while we were all taking some Fridays off. Nicole has been here working in the office pretty regularly, so appreciate it, Nicole.
Thank y'all. Number 12 is asbestos abatement at Technology Building.
So with any renovation project, there's always some surprises, whether you want them or not. And unfortunately, we found when we tested the tile that was in the building in a couple areas, they did find some asbestos in that building. So we are going to have to do abatement to there. So we need the board to approve a budget of an additional $50,000 for that project, $22,525 for the abatement, and then an additional $27,475 for the testing after the abatement and to replace all carpet, because now carpet in the entire renovation has to be replaced as well. So we believe that's the second number is an estimated number, but we believe we've added enough cushion there to cover the rest of that project.
That sucks. Make a motion. Are you making a motion? I'll second your motion.
John made the motion and Starla seconded. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, 13 is salary scales.
Okay, so we are not looking for an approval of anything tonight. What we're really wanting to do is have some discussion based on our understanding of House Bill 2 and to present the board with some options. And we are looking for you to give us some direction and let us know if our thought process is headed in the right direction. As we get more final information on the funds from House Bill 2, we would like to be able to bring back an actual recommendation to the board at the July meeting for pay raises for several groups of individuals. So at your place, I gave you the sheet here that's got the yellow highlights at the top. And then there's a second sheet behind it that has the gray lettering. There's one at everybody's spot. So from what Nicole just presented to you, what the state has told us they are going to actually fund us for is raises focused at classroom teachers. So the money that they are allocating to us is focused only towards individuals who are classified in an 087 code. That's a PEEM terminology, but what that means is that those individuals spend at least 50% of their day in the classroom with direct instruction. Okay? So that creates two issues for almost all school districts around us. One, most of us had a teacher scale that we had all of our classroom teachers on, but we also had a whole bunch of other positions on, things like counselors, nurses, and diags, and all these other positions that we have tied to them. And that gray sheet that I have behind there lists all of those positions that were also on the teacher scale and what kind of stipend they got and how many of them there were and at what levels, okay? With the way the state did the funding for extra raises, they gave money for the classroom teachers, but they did not allocate funds for any of those individuals. So what that is forcing us to do is to take a look at creating a new salary scale for individuals that were on the teacher scale but aren't classroom teachers. Because the state, by the way they're looking at doing that funding, has forced us to separate those into two separate groups where we used to have them all kind of lumped together. Does that make sense? Okay, so on your sheet that has the yellow top there, what I've done on the side, and when I say I, Nicole did, we talked through this process and we tried to represent as closely as we can what the state has said we have to do. Now, notice when Nicole gave those slides earlier, they did not allocate any additional funding to give raises for teachers in year 0, 1, or 2. The raises that the state is funding is for teachers in year 3 and 4 that are entering year 3 and 4. Those are the $2,500 raise for our size district, and then a $5,000 raise for people entering year 5 and beyond. Okay? So what I've presented there for you is a scale that shows what that would do to our scale if we took last year's scale and only applied what the state required us to do, with one little caveat, okay? We had to add an additional $500 to step 0, 1, and 2, and if you don't mind, I'll come back and explain why we did that in a minute. But for the rest of the scale there, that would be what would happen going down the line. So what it means, if you were a teacher at Princeton and you were on step 0, 1, or 2 next year, you would receive an additional $500 more than what you were. You got a $500 raise on top of your step, okay? On step 3 and 4, you would receive a total of a $2,500 raise from last year's pay to this year's pay. And on step 5 and beyond, you'd receive a $5,000 raise from what your last year pay was till this year's pay. Okay? That make sense? And that would expend all of the money the state gave us and a little bit more because we added those $500 steps to 0, 1, and 2. The reason we have to add the extra money to step 0, 1, and 2 is that last part that we just got clarification on today, and we're still not 100% sure on it, but that says a non-certified 0-year teacher, so someone entering the teaching that is non-certified, must make less than a teacher entering at 0 who is certified. Okay? So if you look over on that third column there, I've got non-certified classroom teachers. That would be their skills, noticing that it is slightly less than what we have proposed for 0, 1, and 2 on the classroom teacher side. Now, interestingly enough, you would think if a 0-year non-certified had to make less than a 0-year certified, that would be true forever. But it's not. The state law clearly says by year 5, they should be making the same amount of money. So to follow all the rules, what we have over there is you have those 3 steps for 0, 1, and 2, and then starting on step 3 and above, it actually matches what's on the other side because the state says, regardless of whether you are certified or not, at step 3 and 4, you have to be making $2,500 more than you made this last year. So those steps match up starting at level 3.
Okay.
Okay? So the first column and the last column are exactly what we believe we have to do to meet state law
Get it.
and to spend the funds that the state gave us. Any questions on that? Okay. The center column then is an example of what we are proposing to do with all of those other positions that we talked about. The people that used to be on the teacher salary scale, but now the state is separating those two out into 2 separate groups. And so what we've done there is we've taken that salary scale they were on last year, and we've added their step plus $1,500. Starting at year 3. Thank you, Nicole.
Now, these people are also getting a stipend.
Very good. So while they're getting that as their base pay, if you look back to that second sheet, all of those positions also receive one or multiple stipends based on the position that they're taking. So they get this base plus those stipends that are on your stipend sheet you have. Does that make sense? And so what this allows us to do is if the state continues to allocate money, but allocate for specific purposes, we've got those people on 2 different salary scales to do so. At this point in time, the only people they've pulled off are 087 classroom teachers. Therefore, they need to be on their own scale so that we can keep that separate.
So you are looking for us to say, you're going the right way. but
Head nods, like, am I heading the right way? Do we think we should be doing a lot more? Do we think we should be doing a lot less? And before you give me that direction, let me go ahead and throw one more group, the other people that we haven't talked about, is our hourly employees. So just so you kind of know what we've put on paper here if we were to do everything we have presented here for all the contracted people, and we took and gave everybody that's an hourly employee their step plus a 50-cent raise, we would expend all the money the state has given us in both the teacher money and the additional $45 that they're giving us, and we would have to come out of pocket somewhere around $400,000. So we would have to reduce that fund balance that Nicole was showing up there by somewhere around $400,000 to do that. And when we talked before, that kind of staying under that $500,000 was kind of a little bit of direction that was given to us from the board. And so that's why we ended where we did, trying to get somewhere close to what we had talked about in the past. We believe we can do that comfortably, unless something dramatically different comes out of some other interpretation of the law between now and next month. But that's why we don't really want to make a motion to do anything tonight. We just want to know, are we heading in the right direction? Do we feel comfortable with what we've said with those individual groups? Do we think we need to look at pushing harder in some area or lightening up in some area?
I think
I really think you did a great job. This really rewards people, and I'm glad to see that the state stepped up for us. But I'm glad to see that we're stepping up for the people that weren't taken care of as adequately as well.
I agree with that, Cindy. I think you guys are headed in a good direction. You're using the funds that they are giving us appropriately, and we're still looking out for others. I mean, there's going to be a piece to where we're not going to be able to give everyone everything at the same time. And based on this House bill and the reason that we have the funds, it's focused on our teachers. So I think this is a good compromise for all of it.
I do too. I agree.
I'd like to look at the numbers at, 1,000, 500, 1,500, 2,000 in that middle column, just to see what that impact is. It doesn't have to be those numbers, but some kind of a scale so we can play with it a little bit.
In your spreadsheet that you have up, if we change that from 15 to 1,000, can you tell me what the delta is? We were prepared for this question, so we knew we were going to get some answers.
So I apologize, are you looking for like local fund total, how that changes what we would?
Contribute, yes.
Our portion.
So we'd go, you're looking at closer to 300,000. So from about 377,000 to 310,000, if I go 1,500 down to 1,000.
Do 500 and do 2,000.
Please.
Please. Sorry.
500 takes you under 243, under 245,000 for the district portion. If you go to 500, and if we go to 2,000, it takes us up to about 445,000. That would be our portion.
I think hearing that 1,500 would be the max that I would want to give.
I think I'd like a little time to digest it, but, I think you're heading the right direction. I like the idea of splitting out the different classes of staff that we have. And I'm wondering, should it be even split out one more? Is there a class within this class that might also be split? I don't know. Because all these positions are, let's say, more coveted positions in that, they're counselors, or they usually have to have a master's, to get into these positions.
Correct.
So how we're looking at that, versus, I don't know what a webmaster does, but, just, there's different positions here and different range of education, I'm sure.
Dwayne, I think they have something on here
They get
that shows the difference between the masters versus if they didn't have it.
we can definitely look at that and see if there's anything else that comes up there. Like I said, we just took everybody that was in the one group and split them by the way the state has now split them to classroom or non-classroom. So there may be some conversation for that in the past or in the future on how we want to split those, but kind of just doing what was
Yeah,
needed at the time.
this is the first time I've looked at it really, and so
Yeah,
I-
which
I'd
is
like
why
a
we're
little
not
time.
looking for an answer
Yeah.
today. We just wanted to get some head nods to that, yes, this is what we can support. It's in the ballpark, we're heading in the right direction, and we can bring back more concrete stuff as we get ready for next month. And then, but we will be looking to make an actual motion on this by the July board meeting. So encourage any board member that had additional questions after sleeping on it to please reach out and talk to me along the way, and so that we can be prepared to do that at the July board meeting.
Good job. Any other questions? John, did you have a comment?
Well, I agree the same, continuing the motion we're going, but look for other ways also at the same time. We can continue to look for ways to kind of pull some things back.
Awesome, thank you. Number 14 is our budget amendment. We need a vote on that.
On the budget amendment, yeah. If you have any questions on it, John is here to
I'm
share.
already up here with no clicker.
With no clicker, oh no.
This budget amendment, you know, at the beginning of the year, when I presented the August budget, we were significantly over students. So this revenue that's coming in is from the additional students and ADA from this year that we had. If you remember too, from the slideshow that Nicole showed us, we were about 2 million deficit. So this does kind of help offset that deficit and all the additional positions that we've added. I went back and looked in August and September, we added another like 32 staffing positions. So this kind of is offsetting and kind of cleaning things up because, you know, as you budget, things change throughout the year. We make our best guesses and sometimes we need to shift those pots around. So that's just kind of that first cleanup there. And then at the bottom, we had, last month you guys approved that RFP for 240. And when I had originally set that, it wasn't enough funds in the budget. So I was just cleaning that number up there. We do have plenty of funds in that fund balance and, excuse me, the government makes us spend that or they're going to take it away. So it was definitely an RFP that we needed to do, and then the asbestos and carpet that you guys just approved.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Starla made the motion and John seconded. All in favor, raise your hand. All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, motion passes. Thank you,
Who
John.
made the second? I'm sorry, I missed.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Number 15 is homeschool participation in extracurricular activities.
So for those of you that were on the board or was around about 4 years ago, there was some legislation that passed that made it where school districts could allow students who were being homeschooled to participate in extracurricular activities at the campus. When they passed that, school districts who wanted to participate had a deadline by which they had to opt in to participate in that program. In the 4 years it's been running, 46 school districts, including charter schools, have opted into that program out of the about 1,000+ districts and charter schools in the state. With this new legislative session, it wasn't enough that they gave us the option to opt in. Now they've told us we have to actually take action to opt out if we don't want to do it. And so we have a deadline that's coming up of September 1st or August 1st, depending on who you ask. But we have a deadline coming up by August 1st to make a decision on whether we would like to allow homeschool students to participate in school UIL activities.
So I'm going to comment a couple things on here. Wanted this brought up so that we could discuss it. I realize that not all the board members are here, so I was hoping that we would get more input, but because it's on the agenda, I did want to go ahead and go through that and see if we could get some direction. Mr. McIntyre's expressed some concerns that he has. However, in this bill, in the updated version from the Senate, I think it's 401, it kind of dealt with several issues that they had 4 years ago. So what I wanted to do is just kind of poll the board members and see where the concerns might be and see if it's addressed in the FAQs. There was a whole FAQ that basically dealt with all the concerns that Mac brought up, with the exception of maybe one or two. And so I wanted to kind of work through that. My thinking is this bill is actually called the Equal Access Bill. And what it is, the idea is that it's going to give access to all students in our Princeton ISD community to have access to UIL activities that the school district is currently involved with. One of my points is that I look at this as all those students' parents are taxpayers. They pay tax. They're contributing to this school through their property taxes. And so Johnny, living next door to Freddie, Freddie can't go because he's in a private school, but Johnny can participate. That just doesn't seem fair to me.
To be clear, though, let's not use the word private school, because
Oh, in the bill, it defines it as homeschool is also considered a private school. So it's in the bill, 540, or the access bill. I've got that here if you need to look at it. But it defines that. There are currently 35 states, 35 other states that are currently have a bill that is allowing equal access. And why I think 35 states and all the concerns that were brought up or haven't even been brought up here 4 years ago, when those concerns were brought up, none of those things have played out. There's a lot of straw men, I think, that are held out and said, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? The bills and the FAQ gives us plenty of leverage and plenty of ability to make the program workable, because those students would be held to the same standards of behavioral conduct and also all participation. There's a whole list of things. It's the same standards that our enrolled students are held to. And in doing my research, I found that there was somebody that we probably all know. Are you with me? There was someone that we probably all have heard of that was a homeschool student. And this person, he was born August 14th, 1987. He was an American football player who was a dominant dual threat quarterback at the University of Florida, Gainesville, where he won a Heisman Trophy and he led the team to 2 national championships. He played for 3 years in the NFL as a quarterback. He also did some other things, and that person is Tim Tebow. You guys recognize that name? Yeah. Well, he was a homeschool student. Had he not been able to be in Florida where they had this rule passed, I'm not doing anything different here. If he had not been able to participate, we would not have had a Tim Tebow, who is a guy that's really shown as a great role model to lots of kids. And, do we have a Tim Tebow in Princeton ISD? Maybe. We don't know. But to take that opportunity away from kids that are in our community, I think would be wrong. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I'm open to any questions. I've got all the FAQs here. If we can kind of scroll through those and answer those questions.
Dwayne, can I add to that? I appreciate your viewpoint on it, and I truly respect a family's right to choose homeschooling or to rear their children the way that they believe they should do it. But I don't believe that it is equitable or fair to allow homeschool students to participate in our public school extracurricular activities. As someone who is a parent, we've already moved from being, this 4A, 5A. So it's getting really competitive, right? And then when you think about your students who are here, like as someone who has to watch their kid try out for teams and not make it, it's definitely different, and it makes us as a parent feel like, okay, our kids have to abide by certain rules. They have to show up. They've got to go to practice. They've got to be a certain way at school, because part of the consequences if they get in trouble or anything in the school, at school, is that that's gonna be taken away from them. They won't be allowed to play. If their grades fall, they're not allowed to play. If they got into an argument and they threw hands with someone in the classroom, they're not allowed to play. I just think, based off of what you're saying, I think that it's not completely fair. And I did kind of write out some, like, my thoughts as I was looking through this and preparing for tonight. I just put in here just notes that public schools operate as holistic communities where students are expected to meet specific academic, behavioral, and attendance standards, because they got to be there, and they've got to be at every practice, they've got to be at everything. These standards are directly tied to participation in their ability to participate in extracurricular programs. And these programs are, to your point, funded by taxpayers and supported by staff who are already committed to serving fully enrolled students. So it also makes me think about the coaches and them having to build the rapport with these students that are homeschooled, that have different rules. And I'm not throwing any or holding anything against people that are being homeschooled. I just feel like homeschool students are not subject to the same daily structure, the expectations, or the accountability. And to allow them to participate in programs like the athletics, band, or student government without actually being enrolled in the school system undermines the fairness of those requirements for students who are. It's also important to note that homeschool families are not without options. There are private leagues, there are community programs, there are co-ops, and other homeschool associations that offer a robust extracurricular opportunity that's designed specifically for their needs. So it's not as though these students are being left out entirely. They simply have different avenues that align with the educational path that they and their parents have chosen. So at a time when public schools are already working with limited resources, our priority should be, and it should remain focused on serving the students who are fully committed to and engaged in our district every single day. For these reasons, I can't support allowing homeschool participation in our extracurricular activities.
Thanks, I appreciate you reading that. And did you get a chance to go through the FAQs? Okay. Then you probably notice, I'm just going to go ahead and read one of those because it kind of dealt with one of the concerns you brought up was, what options do we have? A student has a code of conduct violation while participating, and this list is stated several times within the bill. It says a non-enrolled student who seeks to participate or participates in a league activity on behalf of a school is subject to the following relevant policies that apply to students enrolled in the school: registration for league activities, age eligibility, fees, insurance, transportation, physical condition, qualifications, responsibilities, event schedules, standards of behavior and performance. And that item, the standards of behavior, is one of the concerns that even Mac brought up. And it is the same standard that we hold our kids to. They're required to participate, or they're held to that same standard, so.
Can I ask a question to that? You said a homeschool student is held to the same standard as someone that's in the school, but they're homeschooled with who exactly? So if they're having altercations or anything like that, how are you going to know?
So this is obviously referring to while they're participating in the activities of, let's say, football, basketball, whatever that might be.
Right, but if they are being homeschooled, see, we've got a kid that's sitting in math class, and that kid, they got upset with another kid. They had a good argument, and I threw my crackers over there at them, right? Because there's somebody there for you to go back and forth with. So they got in trouble. But then you compare that to someone that's homeschooled, it's not apples to apples. I don't think that that's a fair assessment, because they're not being put through the same thing. You're not having to build that same social rapport to be able to get along with everyone the same way when you're being homeschooled. And I understand your point that you just feel like everyone, because they pay taxes, I mean, you pay taxes. You don't have kids that are having to, you're not having to make that point about them being at school with you paying taxes. Everybody has to pay taxes. I mean, that's part of it. I just don't feel like that's the same as these kids being in school with my kids, right? And being allowed to do the same thing. It's not fair.
Well, and I appreciate that's your opinion. I would disagree with that. I think that the kids are entitled to, because they're in this district, they're entitled to participate in the URL activities. And, this
There's
bill is
several
titled.
avenues for them.
Hang on, let me finish. I'll let you talk too. But this bill is called equal access. Everybody's complaining about access in different areas. This is equal access to kids that want to participate in a higher level or different level than maybe they have ability to on the homeschool
avenues.
thing. So, and I appreciate there's other avenues. This is one that I feel that they're entitled to. And certainly, let's go through the FAQs and see if it doesn't address the issues. My first reading, I did learn that, some things I'd missed on the first time I read it, it picked up on the second reading, and it dealt with some of the concerns that Mr. McIntyre had presented. So I'm wanting to hear, what else is there?
Well, I would just like to address the comment about equal access, because in my opinion, they do have equal access. They can enroll, they live here, they can enroll and come to school and be a part of the school district, just like the other kids. They have equal access. They're asking for a different access because they don't want to come to math class. They don't want to come to any of the other things. They only want to come to the privileges. They only want to come to the fun stuff. So they have equal access because they live here and they pay taxes here. They have equal access. They can enroll in school tomorrow and be a full-time student in Princeton ISD. That's equal access.
And I have kind of a different view. Dwayne, I love your heart, and I love your points that you have, and I really appreciate that. I agree with Starla on this particular issue in a lot of different ways, because I'm a teacher, and I taught homeschoolers at a co-op school, and I can tell you that I had eye-opening things happen to me at that school. First of all, there were two twin girls. They were in 8th grade. They were in my class, and they were supposed to come to biology and to the science and to different things at the school. And I want you to know that out of the whole year, they attended 2 days of school. We gave them Fs. Their parent gave them As. I talked to the parent, and the parent said, I'm homeschooling them, and they got As. And I said, how did that happen? You're at work all day. Nobody's there to supervise them. When they're in my classroom, they don't do the work that's assigned. How do I expect them to be doing the work at home when they're unsupervised? These children fell behind year by year by year because of this. Now, I'm saying that there are some poor homeschooling parents, but there are some absolutely amazing homeschooling parents. So please, please, I'm not saying anything bad about homeschoolers. I'm just telling you my reality there. I had other students that had similar problems, that had discipline issues. And if they had had discipline issues like they had at that co-op, then we as a school district would never have known that. But so severe that they were actually terminated from the school. And we would be subject to those children coming and disrupting our programs as well, without the ability to put them in DAP, without the ability to do the things that we need to do, not only to just take them off the team, but to help them understand that their choices have consequences. I've been a coach. I would not want to coach a child that I had so little influence over. I really feel like what we need is we need to stay with our course and let those students choose different avenues, like Starla said. And my heart goes out to them because a lot of those parents are doing amazing things. I have friends that have amazing homeschool children that are doing crazy, wonderful things. But then I also saw the bad side of it when I was teaching. And so I can't equate that and make it work for me. And so because of that, I can't go along with that.
Thank you, Cindy. I've heard you tell me some of those before, and as I'm gonna read to you what the FAQ said about that. The first thing you brought out was academic level and the concern that the kids wouldn't be at the same academic level. So I'm just gonna read what the law shows. The parent or person standing in the parental relationship to a non-enrolled student is responsible for oversight of academic standards relating to the student's participation in league activities. As a condition of eligibility to participate in a league activity during the first 6 weeks of school year, a non-enrolled student must demonstrate grade level academic proficiency on any nationally recognized norm reference assessments instruments such as Iowa Test, Basic Skills Test, Stanford Achievements, California Achievement, Comprehensive Test, and they were just making a list. We could actually put in our own part there. So the academic piece can be dealt with. If they're not academically there, they won't be able to participate. But if they are, then we shouldn't hold them back for that. The other thing you brought up.
Ask a quick question?
Sure.
Would those be absolutely administered by our people or by the parent?
Right.
No, that is administered through the district, however the district sets it up. We have the ability and the authority to adjust that requirement.
Can I ask a
Also,
question in
the
regards to that as
student would
well?
be paying for that too. With the parent or whatever, that's their cost. They would feel that burden.
Dwayne, can I ask a question in regards to that as well? Because one of the things we've been going through is how we want our teachers to really focus. Didn't we just give Mr. Gunnels the whole, I need you to focus on getting these scores up. Spend your time, your effort, focusing on getting these scores up. So now what you're saying is if we're doing that, we're taking away from that focus of trying to make them do this to now they've got to split their time even more to test these other students, to your point, based off of what you're saying. Because we're trying to force like a square peg in a round hole. That's what it seems like, based off of the logic that you're sharing.
Well, I'm not trying to force a square peg in a round hole here. I see that the law has already dealt with this issue and provided a solution for it for the districts that are concerned about that, and requiring a testing mechanism. That was one of the concerns Mr. McIntyre brought up and also Cindy brought up.
Wasn't it a concern, though, also that we are supporting our administration? And have we asked them how they feel about this? Like, what about the coaches that would have to actually coach these students? Have we talked to any of them?
Excuse me, let me come in here for a second there. I think the law was talking about where he started out talking. Sorry about that. And we also started talking about, we're not all here tonight, and we're just kind of coming to some kind of discussion about this matter. And I don't think we should just close the door on the matter because you got several people not here to be able to speak on their behalf what they feel. And it's a new law. And so, we got to abide by all the laws, not pick and choose what law we want to abide by.
No,
It's not a law.
It's not a new law, so let's clarify that. It's been in place for 4 years that we could allow it. The only thing that really changed the main change was you had to opt in before, and now we have to take action to opt out.
And can I address that? I talked to some of the legislators and I asked them why they supported that, and they said it was because too many school districts did not even address it. They just totally ignored it last time, and they wanted to make sure that the school districts at least looked at it and addressed it. It is not a rubber stamp that they want that to happen. It's a rubber stamp that they want us to have this conversation.
That's the new portion of it was that we have to opt in, but also what I'm reading is they clarified some of the stuff that was questionable. What they call that snap count, Mac? That is no longer an issue. And that was Mac's big deal when I first talked to him about it a couple of years ago. You know,
But to
I'm not
your
sure.
point, when we did talk about it before, the prior board all had the same feeling of that we did not want to allow that, to have the homeschool students participate in our UIL programs.
Fortunately, we have a new board, so we can
You
look
are
at it.
absolutely correct.
Mr.
And
Dillard, does our athletic department have any recommendations or ideas on this topic?
Could you come to the microphone, please, sir?
Sorry.
We really want to examine this at all angles because we want to make the right decision.
Okay. Well, just from talking to the people in our district, like Plano and Allen and the Prosper School District, as the athletic directors, we've all talked about, I guess, not opting in to the program and keeping it the way it was, just because we have a lot of concerns with, when you're dealing with a lot of kids that,
Could you talk more in the microphone?
oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Okay. When you're dealing with a lot of kids that are homeschooled, and we really don't know the numbers, how many it's really going to be. That could be half my football team. And then trying to develop a program and some camaraderie with kids that are not even with us half the day. I think the teachers play a big role in helping us to develop those kids. And to see them not there for half a day, I think it'd have a big impact on our athletic program. And I think that's our job as educators, to make sure we're there, giving them those pieces to be successful.
And none of the schools in our district currently have opted into the program, is that correct?
No. And they all said they wasn't.
Well, and from my understanding is that's not a school admin decision, that's a board decision that has to come before the board. So they can say what they want, but it's still not their decision. But I do want to hear what the concerns would be so that we could address those. If, the valid concerns, we want to make sure that we're either addressing them or we put a plan together that does address those.
But Dwayne, you just said, have you not said in multiple meetings that your goal is to support and to back our administration? And that you want to be, you want to let all of them know that you support their decisions, and they're telling you that this is not something we would want, but you're still saying, let's just ignore it because there's a few, I don't know the numbers, homeschool students that you think we should really put into that place.
I think you're kind of twisting things a bit there, Starla, but.
It's not twisting, it's what you've said, and you're on record saying this several times.
I am saying right now that every child in Princeton School District territory has a right to participate if they choose to, and this law says that. Now, we, as a
But it is-
board, hang on. We, as a board, can make the decision to not allow them. And I didn't come to this meeting thinking I had the votes. I just wanted to get the discussion started because I didn't like 4 years ago, there was no discussion. It was pretty
But
black.
there
That's
was
just what it was.
discussion. How can you
I was
say that there
here.
was no discussion? There was discussion that took
Well-
place. You had just got here.
I sat here during that meeting and I know what had happened, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's a new board.
But you're right, it is a new board. And there was discussion, so I think that it's not fair for you to say that there was no discussion. You don't know what took place amongst us at that time.
Mr. Dillard, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay. Mr. Brewer, would you like to add anything from the fine arts perspective? I'm assuming that's why you stood up.
I don't know why I'm so passionate about this, but I think it is the equity and how I don't feel like a student that is at home all day studying with their parents, good or bad, whatever that experience may be, will be the same. When I was the president of when we were a small school, when we were a 3A, 4A school, I was the president of our small school band association, and this came up. And that association had never allowed it to happen and still doesn't. Some of their thoughts from the band director's side of it is a homeschool student their schedule is set by their parent. And so that parent or that student could choose to have a private lesson every day with a college professor. And so it wasn't very equitable for a student that had to come to school from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock and had band for one period and then practiced after school and then had to come home and do homework, where a homeschool student could, I don't know, sleep till 9, have a private lesson, do what homework the parent assigned, and then they still compete for the same spot in an all-region or an all-state band. I wonder if a student, a homeschool student, wants to be in our program, we have to accept them. I haven't read the FAQs. I haven't seen anything.
No, it does deal with the thing you're talking about initially about having extra private lessons or whatever. They still have to meet the same requirement that all ULL participants have to meet. So if that's a 30 or a 60-minute class, 5 days a week, they're only allowed that. They're not allowed more, otherwise they would be in violation. You asked another question. Oh, you don't have to accept them. They have to audition or compete or whatever.
But they have to be allowed in or audition, try out in the same manner as your other. So if you are currently keeping every kid who wants to be in band, gets to be in band on a band, yes, every homeschool kid that came in would have to be let in at the same rate, would have to be placed in a band on a band. If you had cuts and were able to cut people, then you would be able to cut individuals in the same manner that you were cutting from other programs.
I got you. And so a student that wants to come in who's not a bad student, now all of a sudden a tuba player moves in, and I don't have any extra tubas. And we're talking about the most expensive instrument. Now I've got $20,000 that I've got to need to find, that's another concern, the financial concern that could put on the district.
Hang on, before you move on. So if you have 3 tubas and you have 4 students currently, how do you handle that?
Well, normally, they're moving through the program, and we can see them coming through the middle school and plan for that, and we can budget for that. A student that may move around, maybe they get upset in their district, and they decide to go homeschool, and then they want to come into band here. Now, in the middle of the year, we have
The FAQs deal with that. They wouldn't be allowed to.
Oh, okay. Well, these are,
They're great questions, and this is, you have to read through the FAQs to deal with them, and I know you hadn't seen them, so that question was presented to me, so I looked for it and found the answer.
My biggest point is, I think, is some of what Mr. Dillard said with building that team, that family, not being there with us all day. And I understand we're not in band or we're not in theater, we're not in choir all day, but we're in those same classrooms with those same kids. I, went through a high school with the same kids and I was with them all day. And then, yes, we were in, a period of whatever together. I just don't think it's equitable for the kids. I don't know that how the group would function, the camaraderie of the group would be as strong.
Yeah, I think it's probably harder on the homeschool child to participate than it would be someone that was attending school full-time and, being enrolled. I definitely see that that's going to be a challenge for them, and, they've got to get it on the team if it's a team sport, or they've got to, audition and qualify if it's something that has those positions, but I think it's probably harder on them to fit in. I watched an interview from Tim Tebow, and he talked about that the other students thought he was weird because he was a homeschool student, but he proved them wrong after a bit that he's actually okay, and he's got an interview. Anybody can go out and search it. He had dyslexia that he dealt with. I don't know if that's why he was homeschooling, but my understanding was their whole family did that. But, I hate to see an opportunity that we could provide somebody that desires this and just say, no, we can't do it because, for whatever reason we come up with. I would like to, I'd like to just address the issues, and if we don't support it, we don't support it, you know.
I know that everyone pays taxes. Do we get, when these homeschool kids come in, do we get average daily attendance for them? Do we get 80? No. Okay. So there's something else. I remember 4 years ago discussing this in the meeting, and at that time I was not for it. At that time I had been able to talk to my directors in charge of my program, and they were also not for it. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Brewer.
Thank you.
Okay, there you go. We talked about the education part, and we talked about the athletic ability part there that each one of these students may have. We don't know. But, you know, like Wayne's saying, I think we should give them an opportunity, okay? And like you say, they're going to be evaluated in all aspects, just like all the other students, as far as their ability to play in the band, like you said, as far as their ability to play a sport. You know, they're going to have to come here ready to do those things. And so their ability to be able to do that is going to be tested through, you know, through the administrators and through the people that are the coaches. And they're going to make that decision at that time, whether they can
So you're
be
going to add
accepted or
more
not be
work
accepted.
on them?
Say again?
We're going to add more work on our teachers and staff.
Well, you would do that anyway if a
No,
new
you
student,
wouldn't.
oh, just let me say something. If a new student approached into this school, you're going to have to start teaching that new student.
Right, and you
Exactly
will-
the
would you
same,
or would you
whether
not?
he's here or not.
But would you or would you not have time to establish some sort of rapport as a teacher, as a coach, with that student if they were here all day? Because you're saying that they're gonna go in and they're gonna have to evaluate them. But technically speaking, you're already doing that throughout the day. You're getting feedback from their classroom teachers, from people that are, you'll get the feedback from other students, so they're able to build that camaraderie with other students that are here on a daily basis. So I don't think it's fair to say, like, they're gonna go through and they're gonna evaluate them, because they're already doing that. You're just adding more work to our current teachers who are already overworked.
And I just want to be the voice of the other side. What's the name of the kid that didn't get to play quarterback because Tim Tebow got to come be? And how good of all-star could he have been had he not got kicked off the team because some homeschooler came and took his spot? You know, when we're a 6A district, and I'm talking about my sophomore daughter that is trying out to be a setter on a volleyball team and already has to compete against hundreds of other kids to get on the volleyball team and go, and she has to be at school at 7 a.m. every morning to be at practice, and then go to class all day long, and then go through all that, and then go to tryouts after school, versus we have no idea what those other deals. And I understand that you keep talking about giving opportunities to them, but when you give that opportunity to them, you could be taking it away from somebody else that's here in our school district all the time. And again, they have equal access. Enroll in Princeton ISD and be a part of our community, and you'll have access to everything everybody else does.
Can I just add one other thing? Like, during COVID, I don't know, like, we have kids, so I'm not just saying this and trying to influence you guys from the perspective of I'm just randomly hearing it. Like, I'm passionate about this because I do have kids that are here. And to Mr. McIntyre's point, he has a child that's here. They're all competing. Do you know what it feels like to watch your kid not make it for something and be knocked out by somebody who isn't even putting in all the work that they are? It doesn't feel good. And I'm not finished. And like you told me, you're going to give me my time. Appreciate you. I also think about, I'm going to take all of it. Thank you. But I also think about during COVID. I didn't let my kids come to school here during COVID. I kept them home and I did the online program. During that time, there were still, when the doors opened back, there were still things that were going on, right? You remember, Cindy, we went through the whole thing about, whether or not the kids can do certain things if they come back, if they're staying at home and they're doing the curriculum at home. They didn't get to go on the field trips. They didn't get to do all the extracurriculars. It was a lot they didn't get to do because I didn't allow my child to come to the school during COVID. And I had to accept that as a parent, right? Because it was my choice not to let them come back. I think this should be just the same. It is their choice, and I respect it. I'm not saying that they're wrong for homeschooling their kids. It is your choice, and you are supposed to rear your child the way that you believe you should. That stated, I also dealt with the consequences. We say there's always consequences for everything, right? I dealt with the consequences that came with it. My kid wasn't allowed to play basketball because he was being in the program. He couldn't do all of the stuff at the same time. So that's part of it. You homeschool, you can find a different avenue. It does not have to be this.
Do you believe we should table this until we get the other three members here?
I'm certainly okay with that. It was more of a matter of, I didn't want to just ignore it like it seemed like it was going to happen.
Perceived last time.
Yeah, and I want to have a discussion and not just say because one person says it's not fair, that it is fair. You know, I'm not convinced that it's not fair to the people who are full-time enrolled students. I'm okay with looking at the options, because I think when you read through the FAQs, everything that you guys have brought up as far as an issue is dealt with in the FAQs. And if there's something that we're not dealing with, we have the ability as a district to deal with that. But if you just feel that I'm not going to allow kids in this community to participate unless they enroll full-time in this school, that's another stance, and I'm not going to stand with that. I will vote against that, but I want people to be able to contribute to this, and that's where I was hoping we'd have more board participation.
Yeah.
Not that we haven't all talked. We have.
We have all spoken, and I appreciate everybody's opinion. The discipline issue is a big thing. We're focusing in our district on discipline and getting control of that. And I believe that would be a loophole. I know you said that they have to meet all of those things or they're kicked off the team. But when you're a coach, you have a lot of different options rather than just kicking the kid off the team. And I would prefer us having those options instead of just having to kick a kid off the team and have to deal with the disruption that causes. So there are a lot of reasons, Dwayne, but the issue with the education and the actual value, and I know you said they take a test at the beginning of the 6 weeks. That's one test.
No, that, again, and like I said before, that's just one of the parameters that is actually written in the law. The school district has the ability to set up other parameters as they deem necessary. So I'm not sure that we have a single kid that would be interested in any of our programs. I don't know. I'm coming at this this is presented to us as an updated law, and I did not want to just ignore it.
And I appreciate you doing your homework. You did a great job, and I really do want to listen to the pros and cons. I believe everybody has a good point. I just think that we have to look at the whole picture and not just little parts of it. So do you want to make a motion to table it, or what do you want to do?
Okay, I'll make a motion to table this to our next meeting, and with the hope that we get some more input from the other board members.
I would second that. So Dwayne made the motion and I seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So that is tabled. Next, we go to number 16, District Goals Evaluation. And this is just thoughts or comments.
So we put a copy of those goals in your packet. This is just an opportunity for you to self-reflect on the goals and how we've done on those goals. And then that will lead into us having an executive session to do the board evaluation after that, so.
So I'll start then. I have some notes here. On improved student performance on assessments, 10% improvement on reading and 5% improvement on all other subjects. I feel like that was lofty goals. We didn't meet that, but we did meet and talk and get some ideas and get some concrete movement on how to improve that. We're in a new plan now, and I'm really very hopeful that that new plan is going to take wings and that we're going to see a huge difference in our scores. Reading scores and math scores and all of the scores are so important. We have to have every single student. My goal, my expectation is that nobody graduates from Princeton ISD that can't read. Everybody has to be reading at grade level. That's what I expect. Implementing the discipline plan, we did implement some discipline issues and discipline plans to take care of some issues, but we need to continue to educate parents and students on consequences, and we need to continue to hold accountable. And guys, we need to be consistent. Principals, teachers, anybody listening, we have to hold them accountable and we have to be consistent. We do not treat little Johnny different than little Mike. Everybody has the same treatment as far as, accountability as everyone else. And I feel like promoting mental, emotional health, the SHAC program has helped with that. And Parents' Night, I love that we're having Parents' Night and trying to educate parents. Thank y'all for doing that. And security, Brent, you're doing a great job. Where are you? He's not here tonight. Oh, Brent, you're doing a great job on a quarterly basis, and you're having a top-notch security program. I think that's all the notes I have. I'll let somebody else talk.
I'm with Cindy. I think our goal was ambitious on the reading. However, I still was hoping that we would get there, and I think that that's still a goal that we need to hold out there and not give up on it. And I'm not saying we are giving up on it, but definitely I want to push towards that. I'm really looking for the implementation of the new programs you guys presented, and I'm hoping that you will ask us for whatever you need so we can make sure that this happens and we see improvement over this next year is what we're really looking for and would like to see that. I think that's probably enough. Cindy already covered most of it.
I know it's really y'all, but I'm going to say a couple of things about Jackie and recruit and develop and train. The effort that they've put into to get out to job fairs and try to recruit people, and the job fairs we've hosted here, and the work you guys have done on that has been amazing. So thank you very much, Jackie. I appreciate all that hard work.
I'm in agreement with what Cindy shared when she talked about our scores, her and Dwayne both. They were very ambitious scores, but to their point, I'm in agreement. We definitely want to continue to improve. I've seen the improvement. I'm hearing the plans. I see where we're trying to change things that we've done in the past to see what's going to work, and making the necessary, adjustments there to make sure that that works. So I'm excited about that. As far as implementing a discipline plan, I feel like we have made major changes on that. We still need to continue that to make sure that we are fair and consistent in what that's going to be. I know, skipping down to where it says promote physical, mental, and emotional health, implement new anti-drug programs to educate students, parents, and staff. Vaping, from my understanding, is still a big issue. So I would say let's continue to do that. But for the most part, I've heard a lot of good things when it comes to discipline and what we're trying to do to combat that has been put in place. In regards to teaching students financial literacy, though, I did want to circle back to that because I feel like we're doing that. Like, I think that, from the classes that I'm aware of for the upperclassmen, we are offering that. We're doing that. So I don't know that, that's something we need to keep saying because we've been doing it. And as far as like the different programs for special education, that's another thing that for me is a soft spot in my heart. I think we need to continue to focus on that. I've heard better things than I've heard in the past, but continue to investigate ways that we can expand and support that we can give for our special education students.
I will continue on that path. I think you guys have been doing a great job of implementing assessments, trying to get the kids where whatever we kind of bring out to you, you are doing that. And I appreciate it and want you to continue to do that, reaching out to these kids. Because we definitely need to hit the goals, the kids, that we're seeking for the goals for the kids to reach. Because once they leave here, they got to go on in life. And unless they're prepared, they're not going to be able to make it out there. It's not getting easier out there, it's getting harder each day. And just to say, I had a friend that filled out an application just recently, applied for a position, and then I just kind of questioned her, did you go back and talk to the person? Oh, no, I didn't do that. You got to be proactive in everything, and we got to make sure these kids are proactive also. Because they can't just turn out a piece of paper and say, okay, I put an application in. You have to go back. You have to follow up on that. And some of these principles that we have out here, you got to teach these kids this stuff so they know what to do. What's the next step? The same thing applies to the education. What's the next step for them when they leave here? And they have to be prepared. And as far as the assessment of security, I think we're doing an excellent job in that area. We've not had any major issues here at our schools. We've heard it throughout other districts, and we have done an excellent job of that. And I think we need to continue that. Look for one more thing we can do to keep this school safe and secure. Because everybody's waiting to come into school to do something. They're just looking for an opportunity. So we always got to be ahead of that. And that's just to add one more piece of security. Thank you.
Your turn. If that's all anybody has to say, we will now need to go into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.083, considering the standards, guidelines, terms, or conditions the board will follow or will instruct its representatives to follow. The time is,
I'll make a motion to enter executive.
Starla made a
9:36.
motion. Pardon?
9:36.
Okay, I couldn't read it.
I'll second.
Dwayne seconded. All in favor, raise your hand. And the time is 9:36. Thank you.
Cindy, since we have no action items after this, I would like permission to dismiss staff and to turn off the recording so Nelson can go home because there are no action items. We will only be adjourning after this.
I think that's perfect. What do y'all think?
Great.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your attention tonight. Thank you for coming.
This is the depository one. Gives Nicole. Yes. It is.
Thank you. Thank you. You did a great job.
Sorry, I just didn't want to put routing numbers and everything on it and have it.
You didn't want to do what?
She didn't want to put the routing numbers.
Oh, no, that's perfect. No, please don't. You did great. Thank you. Thank you. Is that all? All right. Whoops.
It's just not on the old one we fill out for right now. So that's why I just don't have the exact number. Okay. But I wrote it down, so I would remember.
And I figured out why I had it written down. It was because I used the original number and I just modified it without fixing the
Gotcha.
other number. But that's fine.
I know you're kind of having a heart. I was like, oh no, wrong number, wrong number.